Hey everyone, today I'm going to foster a little bit of a discussion topic regarding Monster Hunter Now. This is of course the latest Monster Hunter experience that's only going to be available on mobile devices, whether it's Android or iOS. And I wanted to open up a little bit of a discussion topic regarding whether this specific game in general is ready for the introduction of a brand new weapon type. Remember that it has been quite a while since we have seen a new weapon being introduced specifically for the Monster Hunter franchise. We haven't necessarily seen one in multiple generations by now. Now, we don't necessarily know what they're going to be doing with Monster Hunter 6, World 2, Paradise, whatever they end up calling that game, which we expect to get more information within the next few months on. But as of right now, Monster Hunter Now is in a prime position to experiment with new weapon types. And this is a discussion topic being raised by Game Rant. So I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for the original article from Devin Ellis, a friend. Huge shout out to them for putting up a really interesting discussion topic that I certainly want to bring forth to my audience. And not only that, but I also want to encourage you guys to do let me know in the comments just specifically what type of weapons you would like to see being added in. Now, the interesting thing is that I made a separate video just a few weeks back. I haven't necessarily posted and it hasn't gone live yet regarding what could Monster Hunter 6, World 2, Paradise could end up introducing as a new weapon type as well. So you should be able to see a parallel video dropping probably within the next few weeks, as I'm going to be talking a lot about just the parameters of what that game and the scope is going to be introducing. So essentially their introduction for the article simply says that Monster Hunter Now's mobile approach is a unique opportunity to try out new weapon types for the series at large. With the way Monster Hunter Now is designed differently from Capcom's mainline entries, there is a chance for the game to try new things before they're introduced into another ecosystem. If Niantic makes the most out of this opportunity, it could change later with Monster Hunter games with some standout additions. For many players, switching between weapons and Monster Hunter is one of the series' best attributes. Different hunts can be approached with different loadouts, and Monster Hunter games let players collect and upgrade with a variety of tools so that they're always in a good option available. The way the games are created lets players experiment with the available weapon types if they wish, from a quick melee weapon to dual blades to heavy weapons like the hammer or range options like the bow. But there is something for any sort of players, although there's still room for more. Now, a few weeks back, by the time that this video goes live, I did put out a full-on leaks video. I didn't want to call it that, but certainly that's what it was, where I spoke a lot about some of the uncalled monsters, some of the unrevealed monsters for Monster Hunter Now. Now whether this they've revealed them by the time that this video go live or not, I'm not necessarily sure. I can't predict the future, but I did specifically talk about the way that weapons are unlocked in Monster Hunter Now. And essentially you're beginning with a couple of weapons available. You don't have full access to all 14 weapons. We don't even have a confirmation that all 14 weapon types will be available in Monster Hunter Now. At the very least, we haven't seen them in game just yet. You do unlock some of them by going up HR. More and more weapons become available. So one of the fallacies here that this article will suggest is that you're already out of the gate, have full access to all of the weapons, and that is not the case. You're going to be unlocking weapons as you are leveling up your HR, essentially as you do more hunts, hunt more monsters, and do more quest options. And essentially that is how you grind HR. More HR means more weapons become available. Now, of course, each one of the monsters that you fight drop parts, and then you craft those weapons, etc. But that is a little bit of a fallacy that this article specifically touches upon. That is a little bit inaccurate, since I've already been playing the game, and I spoke about that in another video. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for that. The article continues stating that it has already been revealed that Monster Hunter Now has new customization options, and it could introduce new weapons alongside it. The list of weapon types in Monster Hunter has expanded over the years, so making some additions to that list could fill additional niches. There are several quality ideas for weapons that have yet to grace the series, such as scythes, daggers, and clubs. Normally, Monster Hunter intricate mechanics would require a lot more design interactions with the new weapons. But Monster Hunter Now's more simplified design could make testing new weapons easier than ever. One necessary change is the length and difficulty of hunts being scaled back in order to suit the Monster Hunter Now's mobile gameplay concept. Normally, hunting a large monster takes upwards of half an hour if the player has bad luck or underpowered gear. I would actually push back against that. The longest it would probably take is about 15 minutes if you're not that very good. But of course, we're talking about maybe closer to endgame content in Sunbreak, which is, pretty high yield type stuff. Monster Hunter Now's approach drastically reduced the length of hunts to work with bite-sized portions of a mobile game. With these shorter, simpler hunts, Monster Hunter Now could introduce new weapons with small sets of mechanics that the next console release could expand into a proper moveset. And that is actually the meat and potatoes of this article and essentially what I wanted to touch upon. The fact that hunts in Monster Hunter Now are shorter and they're accurate about that. They'll take anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes roughly, even like entry-level ones. Of course, later hunts will expectedly, climb up in difficulty, but of course, you're not going to be able to play with other players at the same time. You're not going to be doing everything solo, and you're also gameplay-wise, and this is something that I touched upon in that leaks video, you're tapping, you're swiping, there is a cursor for like movement and stuff like that appears on screen, but again, it's all mobile stuff, so there's no real tactile feedback or anything like that. It's still just a smooth screen, so there's not much there, but you are still tapping, you're swiping, you're holding, you're not really doing anything too complicated. So the introduction of weapon types, maybe tauntauns, maybe coming back or something along those lines, could be a good way to garner some attention for this game, especially as the September release is getting imminently closer. The article closes out mentioning that new weapons debuting in Monster Hunter Now may seem unlikely, but the idea is not completely far-fetched. Mario Kart 8's Deluxe Booster Course Pass brought some tracks from the mobile game to Mario Kart Tour in the main series. That most of those tracks were well received in their new forms. Although Monster Hunter Now may not be seen as part of the main series due to the status of mobile spin-offs, it can still add to the Monster Hunter franchise in the future. This includes new weapon varieties or designs that end up debuting as part of Monster Hunter Now's arsenal. I would actually add to that monsters in general. Monster Hunter Now will have new monsters introduced that people will be clamoring for them to make their way into the next mainline game, of course, whether that's 6, World 2, Paradise. Again, those are the words that I always use to describe whatever the next mainline game will be until we actually have a full-on official name. They lastly mentioned that Monster Hunter Now's unique circumstances put it in an interesting position, especially considering the time-consuming series that is part of Monster Hunter needs more range weapons options, and Monster Hunter Now can take the first steps to resolving that while offering new melee options. Although gameplay will not be perfect or replicating a typical Monster Hunter fare, it can at least be a proof of concept for future plans. And this is pretty much kind of segments into what I wanted to talk about when it comes to like ideas. And I think siege weapons, or at the very least mobile siege weapons, is something that I would love to see them introduce as an actual weapon concept type. Wild Hearts already has cannons introduced, and it doesn't necessarily make the game broken by any means. It already has that parasol weapon. It has a couple of others, that kunai with chain type of weapon that's introduced. It was broken in the beginning. They did actually end up patching it up a little bit and introducing a couple of more ideas, but there are a couple of things that Wild Hearts did well. Specifically for me, siege weapons are already available in Monster Hunter in general. They were made very big in World. They were made even bigger in like 4 and 4 Ultimate. Certainly are available in Rise and Sunbreak with the Rampage. But at the end of the day, I guess basically Rise, Sunbreak didn't really have the Rampage. But siege weapons in general are pretty a common staple for Monster Hunter. But for whatever reason, we've never seen them introduce this notion of like, well, why don't you have a hunter that's specifically using siege weapons? Maybe a hunter specifically focusing on dropping traps or using statuses or something along those lines. You always have statuses or like traps as something that you, or even elemental weakness exploits, something that you can actually make directly tied to a weapon. But what if the play type in general, focused a little bit more on that? 4 Ultimate, or I believe Generations, had that, the bomb shake, the big canister kind of shake, the barrel, and it was just one of those things where like it was so weirdly unique, and it was really interesting in its own right. Now, it wasn't necessarily balanced by any means. It was probably the least played version of all the weapons in that specific game, which already didn't have very good balance at the end of the day. But it did provide players a little bit of a weird thing to do at the end of the day that was interesting in its own right. And I think For me personally, I would love to see them add siege type weapons. At the very least, test them out on now. And again, if they actually work and they become balanced, whether it's Tom Fuzz or whatever, something along those lines, they end up getting introduced or brought back, making their way into the next mainline game. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. Once again, huge shout out to Game Rant and Devin Nellis friend for their awesome article regarding Monster Hunter Now and their prime position to experiment with new weapon types. If you're brand new to my channel though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.